In March of 1623, within the marble corridors of Topkapi Palace, a sound pierced the pre-dawn silence that even the armed guards refused to acknowledge. It was the voice of a 15-year-old girl, Princess Fatma, daughter of Sultan Ahmed the First, and her screams would echo through a secret that the Ottoman court had concealed for generations. What you're about to hear is not a tale of battlefield conquest or political intrigue in the traditional sense. It is the documented story of an imperial practice so psychologically devastating that it remained hidden in encrypted archives for nearly 4 centuries. Today we'll examine what historians discovered in 2019 within Istanbul's state archives records that fundamentally changed our understanding of life for Ottoman princesses. Before we begin, I want to be clear. This video presents documented historical practices as understood by contemporary scholars. We'll discuss difficult topics, but always through an academic lens, with respect for the historical figures involved. The Ottoman Empire ruled for over 6 centuries, from 1299 to 1922, controlling territory across 3 continents. At its height under Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century, it was among the most powerful states on earth. The empire's capital, Constantinople, renamed Istanbul after its conquest in 1453, became home to Topkapi Palace, the administrative and residential heart of Ottoman power. Within Topkapi's walls existed the Imperial Harem, a complex institution often misunderstood in Western sources. This wasn't simply a sultan's private quarters, it was a highly structured hierarchy involving hundreds of women, from enslaved concubines to the sultan's mother, the valid sultan, who often wielded significant political influence. Historians identify a period called the Sultanate of Women, roughly from 1533 to 1656, when royal mothers and wives exercised unprecedented political power. Figures like Qasim Sultan effectively ruled as regents, directing state policy and commanding the loyalty of military leaders. This demonstrates that some women within the Ottoman system could achieve remarkable agency. But princesses, the sultan's daughters by blood, occupied a paradoxical position. Despite their royal lineage, they were valuable primarily as diplomatic tools. Their marriages sealed political alliances, rewarded loyal military commanders, and maintained the delicate balance of power between the throne and its most powerful subjects. This brings us to Princess Fatma Sultan, born in 1606 to Sultan Ahmed I and his powerful consort Qasim Sultan. Contemporary accounts describe Fatma as intellectually gifted, fluent in Arabic and Persian, educated in astronomy, calligraphy, and Islamic jurisprudence. Palace scholars reportedly praised her learning, yet none of this protected her from the fate predetermined at her birth: marriage to a man chosen for political convenience. In 1623, at age 15, she was betrothed to Koka Mustafa Pasha, a military commander approximately 20 years her senior, recently returned from campaigns against Safavid Persia. What makes Fatma's case particularly significant to historians is the unusual documentation that survived. Between 2019 and 2021, researchers at Istanbul State Archives uncovered encrypted Persian-language documents detailing a marriage preparation protocol called Turbi-i-Mubarak, the sacred education. These documents, along with cross-referenced palace medical records and diplomatic correspondence, reveal a systematic program designed to prepare royal brides for their marriages. According to the archived records, this preparation wasn't merely cultural education, it was psychological conditioning. The process reportedly began 3 months before a wedding, under the supervision of senior harem officials. Young princesses underwent intensive training in what sources describe as appropriate wifely conduct. This included memorizing specific forms of greeting, learning restricted vocabularies for addressing their husbands, and practicing elaborate rituals of deference. Documents describe physical components as well: controlled diets, regulated sleep schedules, and supervised bathing rituals using specially prepared oils and herbs. Medical texts from the period mentioned substances like diluted opium and mandrake extract, used in various Ottoman medical practices, though their specific application in this context remains debated among scholars. Perhaps most disturbing to modern readers are references to what historians translate as rehearsal chambers, private rooms where instructional sessions took place. The exact nature of these sessions remains partially obscured by euphemistic language in the sources, but medical records suggest they were psychologically traumatic. Dr. Elif Skan, an Ottoman social historian at Boğaziçi University, notes that these practices must be understood within their historical context. The Ottoman imperial system valued political stability above individual welfare. Princesses were born into a structure that viewed them as instruments of dynastic continuity. What we're seeing in these documents is the formalization of that reality into protocol. It's crucial to understand that such practices weren't unique to the Ottoman Empire. Across medieval and early modern societies, royal daughters were routinely married for political advantage with little regard for their personal wishes. What distinguishes the Ottoman case is the documentary evidence of formalized preparation systems. The wedding of Princess Fatma to Koka Mustafa Pasha took place on March 15, 1623. With the public ceremonies expected of an imperial marriage, chronicles describe processions through Istanbul's streets, festivities at Topkapi Palace, and the traditional presentation of gifts to the bride. But the private records tell a different story. Palace medical journals, part of the 2019 archival discovery, contain entries describing Fatma's physical and psychological state before and after the wedding. Physicians noted symptoms that modern medical historians recognize as severe anxiety, trembling, hyperventilation, inability to eat, and what the Ottoman doctors called spirit sickness. The wedding night itself took place in a specially designated pavilion, the Gerdek KK, or bridal pavilion, a three-level structure within Topkapi's private gardens. Architectural historians have identified its remains and floor plan, confirming descriptions in the documents. What happened in that pavilion is documented through oblique references in encrypted medical records. Court physicians recorded that Fatma experienced what they termed ra-kukmask, literally departure of the soul, describing a dissociative state. Modern trauma psychologists who have reviewed these historical descriptions identify characteristics consistent with acute psychological trauma. In the weeks following her wedding, palace records indicate Fatma developed what physicians called selective silence. She would speak only when directly addressed and only in whispers. She lost significant weight, requiring intervention from court doctors. Most tellingly, she displayed extreme anxiety in the presence of men, even trusted palace officials. Contemporary Ottoman medical texts labeled this condition Bakiya melancholy, virginal melancholy, suggesting it was recognized as a pattern among newly married aristocratic women. But the term obscures the severity of what modern clinicians would recognize as post-traumatic stress. Fatma lived another 29 years after that night, dying in 1652 at age 46. Official records attribute her death to brain fever, a casual diagnosis in the period occurring on the anniversary of her wedding day. She bore children and fulfilled her ceremonial duties, but personal correspondence that survived suggests she never recovered psychologically. Critically, Fatma's case was not isolated. The 2019 archival discovery included records of at least 37 other princesses who underwent similar preparation protocols between 1520 and 1730. Medical records describe recurring patterns, psychological symptoms before weddings, trauma responses afterward, and long-term emotional consequences. Some cases were more extreme. Documents mention princesses who developed what court officials called permanent silence, complete mutism lasting years. Others show evidence of self-harm or suicide attempts, though these were typically disguised in official records as accidents or illnesses. A few remarkable cases demonstrate resistance. Several princesses petitioned directly to sultans, often their fathers or brothers, requesting divorce, an almost unthinkable breach of protocol. The existence of these petitions shows that even within a rigid system, some women found ways to assert agency. Though success rates were low, Dr. Mehmet Arslan, a specialist in Ottoman palace culture at Istanbul University, emphasizes the importance of understanding systemic context. We cannot judge 16th century practices by 21st century ethical standards. However, we can acknowledge that the Ottoman system, like many early modern imperial structures, prioritized dynastic stability over individual well-being, and that this had measurable human costs. The practice of intensive marriage preparation for princesses appears to have declined after 1730, coinciding with broader reforms in palace administration. By the 19th century, as the Ottoman Empire modernized under pressure from European powers, marriage customs for royal women shifted significantly, though arranged marriages remained common. Why did these practices remain hidden for so long? Part of the answer lies in how the Ottoman court controlled information. Official chronicles emphasized dynastic glory and imperial power, not private suffering. Personal documents were encrypted, dispersed, or destroyed. The 2019 discovery was possible only because researchers gained access to previously restricted medical archives during a digitization project. It's also important to note that the harem itself was deliberately mysterious to outsiders. European travelers and diplomats rarely gained access, and their accounts were often sensationalized or inaccurate. This created a mythology around Ottoman domestic life that obscured actual practices, both positive and negative. What does Fatma's story tell us? It reveals the human cost of political systems that treated women as instruments of state policy. It shows how institutions can develop sophisticated methods of control while maintaining facades of prosperity and honor. And it demonstrates why historical research matters, because uncovering these buried truths allows us to understand the full complexity of human societies, not just their public faces. The screams that echoed through Topkapi Palace in 1623 were silenced by protocol, by encrypted records, by the deliberate obscurity of power. But they were real, and now, nearly 4 centuries later, we can finally acknowledge what happened to the young woman who made them, not as scandal or sensationalism, but as sober historical fact. Princess Fatma Sultan deserves to be remembered not merely as a diplomatic pawn, but as a person who suffered, endured, and survived within a system that gave her no choice.